Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming to Roca Gallery and joining the first event under the EU Males Awards China-Europe Exchange Exhibition. This time, we are very honored to collaborate with Ms. Fandoro Foundation and the Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University. In the following 3 weeks from March 10th, that means today, to March 23rd, we'll present a 3-week offline exhibition in both Roca Shanghai Gallery and Roca Beijing Gallery. In Shanghai Gallery, we'll display in the form of video and pictures, and in Beijing Gallery, we'll use our giant LED screen to display a digital version for all the Ms. Fandoro Foundation's award projects. Under the umbrella of this exhibition, 3 roundtables will be held as well. Shanghai Gallery, Beijing Gallery, and the Barcelona Gallery will invite architects to share their inspiring thoughts about the profession, education, and superblock. As a company dedicated to designing, manufacturing, and selling bathroom products for architecture, construction, and interior design, Roca created the Roca Gallery project in 2010 as a meeting point to encourage constant dialogue with society relevant to architecture and design. Right now, we already have 6 galleries all around the world: Barcelona Gallery, Madrid Gallery, Lisbon Gallery, London Gallery, Beijing, and Shanghai Gallery. We always host weekly events in our venue and welcome to follow our WeChat to receive more information. Last not least, thanks for all your coming and hope you all enjoying this night. Tonight, the weather in Beijing is not good, but we really appreciate all of our guests coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine and Katrina. It is a pleasure for the Mies Foundation in Barcelona to participate and to organize this event together with Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University and Roca, to whom we wish to thank for envisioning these events and making them a reality. My name is Ivan Blasi, and I'm the Director of Programs here at the Mies, where we have the great opportunity to work in this pavilion, of which you're seeing a photograph behind me, built originally in 1929 by Mies and Rijk, and where we also organize the European Union Prize for Contemporary Architecture, the Mies van der Rohe Awards. The China-Europe Exchange program is an opportunity for us to learn more about the profession, the education of architects, and the specificity of public spaces both in China and in Europe. To do so, we have organized this exhibition in Roca Shanghai Gallery with the 2 winners, the 5 finalists, and the 33 shortlisted works of the EU Mies Awards 2022. This prestigious European Architecture Prize that we have been organizing since 1988 with the support of the European Union. And the aim of the prize and of today's event actually is to learn more about the challenges that we have as architects and to learn from each other. The EU Mies Awards are organized as a network of people and institutions in Europe, and this allows us to arrive or to reach to as much of the European territory as possible. And from there to the rest of the world, like today with you there in China. Collaborating with universities such as Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University allows us to also discover how architecture is envisioned, is understood and taught, and how the future professionals face our global challenges. And collaborating with Roca makes it possible to connect the industry to the profession and to focus on architectural culture in a broad way as we're doing today. So as architecture, we are serve that is of general interest, and we want to enhance this with this event, China-Europe Exchange, which together with the exhibition in Shanghai consists of these 3 connected talks: the profession, education, and public space. In this 3rd event, we will also be connecting live from the Roca Barcelona Gallery. I would now like to share the stage with Davide Lombardi, head of the Department of Architecture at the Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, and Jose Ramon, project architect and professor at the same university. Thank you all, our guests and all the audience and all of you for attending today.
Thanks a lot, Ivan. So now it's my turn. First of all, I want to say again thank you to Ivan and Jasmine for having arranged this event together with Jose, which is a colleague of mine at Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, as well as I want to thank my university, the design school, and the Department of Architecture for having accepted the approval to support this important event. And last but not least, our guest, Dubravko from Brussels, for let's say in representing the Mies van der Rohe Foundation, Darcy Chan from Shanghai, and Binke Leonard that is here with us in Beijing. Very few words about Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University, or as we call it, XJTLU, which is one of the first and most important Sino-foreign university here in China. And our Department of Architecture is part, as I mentioned, of the design school, which actually provides a fantastic platform for students, not just from China, but actually from all over the world to come and learn not only architecture, but also what it means to stay in an international context like us, in a big country like China, in a actually expanding continent like China, and to have the chance to interact indeed with professionals that's like the ones we invited today, as well as in the next two sections that will take place over the next 2 weeks. And with that said, I will pass over to Jose in Shanghai for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Well, I would like to, apart from our guests, that we have a super nice panel today, I would like to thank everybody who came here to Shanghai, and also the people that they are in Beijing for coming to this event. So now I would like to introduce you our speakers of today. So here we have Darcy Chan. He's from Beehive Architects. In Europe, we have Dubravko Bacic. In Beijing, we have Binke Leonard from Cross Boundaries. And now all of them, they will have 5 minutes to do a self-presentation. That's I think it will be much more better. So let's gonna start with Beijing, with Binke. I leave her the stage.
Good evening from Beijing. Here it's evening already. I'm sure in other locations of the world it's a different time. And as we were told before, it's a horrible weather today. We have a sandstorm. I quickly want to start with a couple of slides to warm up a little bit, and I didn't want to make it so formal. So you see a couple of pictures from my life, because it's about myself here too. So you see myself with the partner of the office, of the Beijing office on the first slide, on the first picture on the top left, which is a picture taken a long time ago, more than 20 years ago in New York. There are only 2 pictures in these presentations which are not from China. So this is one of them. And on the other 3 pictures, you see, you know, us while we were working. So here I'm on the bottom, you can see me while I'm teaching. I think that was at CAFA. On the top right, you can see me while I'm on the construction side, which happens quite a lot in China and which is very different from the experience people have probably on construction sites in Europe. So we maybe get to that later. And on the bottom right, you can see the office, which we founded more than 15 years ago. And this is our space in Beijing. Here, to go further, on the left, you see us in our office. On the right is Hao, and on the left is me. And on the right, you see a picture. We have 3 people. And this is taken in our Frankfurt office. So you can see also Antje on this picture. We founded the Frankfurt office in 2012. And that was because I'm German. I have an international education and I'm living in 20 years, but I'm still having a strong connection to Europe. Quickly, something about our name, which we always have in the presentation. So when we developed our name, we called it Cross Boundaries, and that's why I also had this first slide, because Hao is from China, I'm from Germany, we met in the US. So we feel kind of very international and very much that we are people who want to cross the boundaries. So that's how the name was developed. And you can see our first logo, or our first font was with stencil font. And that had to also had to do with the idea of
having boxes maybe spray painted with the letters, and then the boxes would travel from one country to the other. So it was supposed to, this font supposed to transport also the idea of crossing the boundaries. And over the years, we streamlined the font, and now basically the line is supposed to represent the crossing. When it comes to our practice, we also live the name. We want to cross the boundaries. And I think on the left image, you can clearly see what the profession actually represents nowadays still, that each of these rings represent one speciality. For example, it could be urban planning, it could be urban design, architecture, interior, and normally these professions functions very much independently. What we want to do is we want to cross these boundaries, and we want to work within the other professions. So we do architecture and interior and urban design. And that, I say, it's not so common in Europe. In Europe, you do this a lot, this crossing the boundaries or crossing the professions. But in China, that's very rare. Everything is very much separated. And these diagrams can be transported into any other field, can be also probably for lawyers or for doctors, that they can also merge into other professions. But for architects, it means pretty much this. Now I show a couple of projects, 5 projects quickly on 2 slides. On the left, you see our office in Beijing, and we use yellow a lot. Yellow is our corporate color, and that you can also see represented in the plans on the floor, for example. On the right, you can see a school we developed from an existing campus. That was a renovation project that we completed in 2017. I think it's about 30,000 square meters. And these are some other projects which also, on the left, you can see an interior project, which is the BMW Museum in Beijing. This was done for a vintage car collector. And I think very important to mention is the Red Gate, which is basically the connection between the Chinese idea of a gate and the Western car. So that is supposed to be the link in this project. In the middle, you can see the Sky Park in Shenzhen, a project quite recently completed. And important to mention is that this was built on an existing roof, on a not used rooftop. And so it's a park which is now re-evaluating a former non-usable rooftop. It's 1.2 kilometers long and between 50 and 70 meters wide, and can be used by the public. And on the right side, you can see a project which we completed a while ago for an underwear company, Aima Lingerie in Beijing. It's the headquarter, and basically it stands out through its canyon in the middle of the factory environment, which also helps the workers to, have to generate a better work, because they can go out and enjoy the outside. I would like to stop here because I don't want to drag it too long, and we can pass the word on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Binke. I'll pass over to Jose and Darcy mostly.
Hello everyone, my name is Darcy Chuang from Beehive Architects, and it's my honor to be presenting some of our projects tonight. And so let me briefly introduce our company, a company called Beehive Architects. So it's very similar, the pronunciation of the beehive, the collaborative work between the bees, so which means we are a more collaborative firm. Our project ranging from the master planning, architecture, and interior, and also we are more intriguing to bridge the natural and built environment. So today, I will briefly presenting 3 projects. Hopefully, I can finish on time in 5 minutes. So this is a project from Shanghai, and Actually, it's an interior project. The client is a hotel brand called Atua. And initially, this client looking for us and to say they want to have a new generation of a hotel product. So they don't give us a very clear project brief. So they just mention some like the basic requirements. So we have many freedom to express what we think about the hospitality project. So on the left-hand side is the existing condition before we design and renovate it, and on the right-hand side is the final outcome. So obviously, is the original condition is kind of empty and abandoned the landscape in between open air Asian and we convince the client to really transform this verticality space into an interior space to simply to add in the skyline elements above it, and then renovate the whole interior facade, and then also integrating some elements. The hotel operator told us we need to incorporate some elements into this station. So the right-hand side is the final outcome. So this agent is becoming the key critical elements to bind everything together. It's not just simply a renovation of the whole agent, but also maybe you guys don't know the logo of this hotel is looks like it's a A because their name is Atua, so their logo is big A. So and it's accident because this original floor plan is like a big A. And so it's also kind of the, not just only renovating the physical space, but also kind of delivering a brand icon, also combining together. And also because the reception area is not on the ground floor, is on the third floor here, and in the entrance there is only a very narrow space and only like 100 square meters. So we use the same logic and the same methodology to take this logo as this gateway. So it's becoming elements and integrating with the ceiling elements with some lighting, and then it's horizontally on the ground floor, and then it becoming vertically on the from the third floor to the ninth floor. So it's guiding you to from a horizontal experience to verticality experience. Then this is the next project we just completed last year. It's a restaurant project in Chengdu, and actually this project is directed by the government. The clients, the government. The government wants to have like the 20 to 25 this scale of the smaller building on the both sides of the boulevard. So each building has different functions. Some is restaurants, some are the flagship shops, some are the bar. So they're trying to use this kind of spatial, interesting architectural element to really regenerate the whole cityscape, the whole streetscape. And our idea, before we do this, and we know Chengdu people, they really like to having some activities under the trees or under bamboo and playing mahjong or eating hot pot. So that thing is really inspired us. So we are trying to deliver something, a building really giving you a natural feeling, because along this boulevard there are many cubic high-rise, and it feels very boxy, and we are trying to deliver this kind of the natural feeling, and then providing kind of a steel and timber structure, mixed structure, interior space for people inside dining, and then trying to simulate when they are dining outside or when they are having some activity under the trees or under the bamboos. So the challenge is for us is because in the past year or 2 years ago, we are experiencing this lockdown situation. So honestly, during the whole construction phase, we were not there to really supervise. We even couldn't send our colleague to be there because the very restrict lockdown situation. But I think it's very lucky to having a good collaborator, the LDI and the structural engineer to help us to really make this building happen. So this is the internal view of the this restaurant. So the three-dimensional beams makes you feel like you still it's an interior, totally interior space, but still make you feel like you having dining activities in a very natural environment, and you can see through from the window and see through the natural elements outside. So, and it's quite tough to manage this kind of approach, and we couldn't go to the construction site. So it is another way to really how to control your project, and through another way from some the WeChat group, and then ask all these different contractors to put their related construction photos to us, and then we supervise the condition every day. So it's becoming like this way to really supervise the project. So the last one I would like to briefly presenting is international competition we did 3 years ago. Is a data center in Korea. This is the international competition. Also, there are some different phases. The first stage, they have a design brief, but they are not showing the actual competition site, because during that timing, the client is still looking for the exact construction site. I remember there are totally like the 10 candidate construction site. They are still considering, or they are still negotiating with the local government. So they give us a brief saying like, okay, the site is roughly like how big, and then how many square meters the building they need, and then what kind of programming they need, and they want us to simply say they want the participants to really think about what is the next generation of the data center, and then they would love to use some artificial intelligence technologies and some robots to help the human to really maintain the operation of this new data center. And the data center, the final construction site is located in their new capital, Shizhong City, and this sits within the valley with 2 mountains. So it sits in a very natural environment, and they are asking how to really harmoniously bridge the architecture and the environment itself, because the total building is quite large. The total building is like 250,000 square meters, so it's super large. So how to naturally connect to the environment, so it's very important. So we get inspired by their wall heritage in Korea, like the left-hand side, there's an image showing the ant village called Hahoi village. So we are intrigued by this configuration of this traditional village is surrounded by the natural river and then sits in front of the mountain, and harmoniously all the natural element can be fit into the architectural configurations. So this is the internal. Even though this data center is highly restricted, prohibited the people outside coming to the building, but they still want to have a public meeting for the surrounding neighborhoods. So we creating this kind of open space for providing some public facilities and learning center or some library for the people who live surroundings. They can still come here freely and without any restriction. They can enjoy this space. So you feel you are in a natural environment, but surrounded by the data centers. So.
Thank you very much, Darcy. And now we are going to give the stage to Barcelona, if they can connect.
Yes. Hello. Thank you very much, Binka and Darcy. It's great to listen to you. And today we're speaking about the practice, about the profession understood as practice, the built results. And here in Europe, we have this great opportunity to count with Dubravko Bacic, who's a professor at the Zagreb University, Faculty of Architecture. He's also a practitioner and also a member of the Council of the Architects Council of Europe, which is in Brussels. So they have a great overview of what's happening with the profession. So Dubravko, please present yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan, for this nice introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you hear me well. I'm today joining you from Brussels, and again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, Roca Gallery team. I will be speaking perhaps from a bit different perspective than the two previous presenters. Not that much about me, although as Ivan mentioned, I'm teaching in Zagreb and I'm practicing architect as well. I was educated in Croatia and United States, but let's say my point from which I will be talking today is from the point of professional association. I also have a few slides that are not as interesting as the previous ones, but if you can bear with me, I will just go and shortly present you the Architects Council of Europe. So what is Architects Council of Europe? ACE for short. It's basically an association of associations. ACE was founded in 1991. We assemble all the chambers, national orders, national councils, associations of architects from Europe, not just European Union, but we also have observing members, recently Ukraine and Montenegro, now soon to join North Macedonia and maybe Kosovo and so on. So, and then we have 44 member organizations, and we like to boost that we represent in a way more than 500,000 of European architects, more or less. So this is perhaps to somehow to show our strengths towards the European Commission and the bodies. What is ACE about? We have, let's say, three main lines of work. First, of course, it's a platform for all the European architects or representatives of European chambers and associations to come together, to meet, to exchange experiences, practices, about the possibility of collaboration. The second point is advocacy on behalf of the profession towards the European Commission and the bodies of European institutions. And the third one is obviously to promote architecture and to try to do something on behalf of the profession and the discipline itself. As an association, these are like very usual structure, or the structure that ACE does, but we have our work divided, let's say, in 4 areas. The last one, the most recent one, is mostly connected to various European projects in which we also participate as partners, and the advocacy on behalf of the profession towards European institutions. The work we produce are mostly policy positions, as you can imagine, with 40 member organizations, and then it's not always easy to come to, let's say, joint positions, but we try to produce all sorts of documents that somehow promote architectural competitions, quality of architecture, and so on. And all of these documents are available at our website. One of the perhaps most important document that we produce is a biennial sector study, which is basically a survey of European of our profession in Europe, and we do it with the help and through the contacts of our member associations. So this is how we know certain numbers, and we use this especially when we need to argue certain positions on behalf of the profession towards the Commission. Now we are in the process of making public the last edition of the sector study, which covers basically period of 2022. And it will be published soon. So it's biennial every second year. So the last one that we had in 2020 showed some interesting information. So this is available on our website, and you can look for it and then see. It shows very interesting things, like the fact that we are still a very fragmented profession, that 75% of the European offices are basically 1 to 2 or 3 people. Let's say the ratio of housing and then other kinds of activities that architects are involved in outside of, let's say, the main corridor of design or urban planning or so on. So this is some of the policy documents that we have, and we keep on working. For example, we are now preparing a new one on artificial intelligence, and then we also revisit some of the old ones. So this is ongoing work, and basically what we do is, you know, we rely on our member organizations and the work from the delegates that come from different countries, and that's how we work. We have very small structure here in Brussels, just a small office dedicated to, but we rely on our colleagues and their input and the work that comes from all over the Europe, basically. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dubravko. Now let's gonna start to launch the questions. Today we are here to discuss about the profession. So I was thinking my first question, it could be something I would like to ask you about. We are living in a culture of images and social media. And now is a future coming with artificial intelligence. So starting with you, Darcy, how do you think, how is affecting right now in your professional practice, in your everyday life in the studio? How is affecting this culture of the images? And how do you think it's going to change it after all these new things of the artificial intelligence?
So about this question, I think I can briefly introduce my architectural learning background. So my generation, when we start to learn architecture, there's no computer, there's no CAD, so we start to learn architecture from hand drawing. So, and after the 2 years learning, and then we start to use AutoCAD, but without any 3D software to do the modeling. So we still doing some chippable model to present it to our studio tutor. And finally, in the final year of the project, and there is the 3D software coming, and we start to learn how to use that. But it's really underdeveloped compared to the current 3D software. And after I went to study in US, and then after graduation, I worked in Morphosis and start to really investigate how to use the digital fabrication software, and also learn how to use Maya, Rhino, those stuff. Like for example, like the Grasshopper, the really first version of the Grasshopper I started to use in 2008. So and it really gives you more opportunity to really investigate the different options in the project itself. So you can see the power of that. And then I know in the past year, the AI, the Midjourney, this kind of software come in, and then this really easily can generate the images. But for me, right now, I didn't use it, but I saw some of my friends start to kind of play with it. But currently, I still see this kind of a tool to help you get some very rough initial inspiration, but it still cannot be efficiently or to apply into your real project, because it cannot really fit into your actual site condition and the actual programming the client really needs. It provides images. It can give you some inspiration, simultaneously also give your client some inspiration, but it's still, the project still needs a human interaction, the human feeling about the project itself, not just only image. I mean, image is only partial factors in the project itself. So, but we still would love to learn or see new things. I can't say how it can really affect our future practice, but I still believe in humanities. I still believe as a human we still need to learn ourselves, really learn what is this profession, because this profession really needs the interaction between the humans and between the different professions. So this is the thing AI still couldn't do for us right now. So I think this is my current observation about the AI application. But I'm not objecting AI. I'm just describing my observation right now. So thank you.
The culture of image is basically it's been around for, I don't know, 100 years or so. So, you know, I think this is already old news. What we are now dealing with, this slow or more and more increasing introduction of artificial intelligence in our processes. This is something that we need to address and or become aware of. We did, as an ACE, we did a conference last year on artificial intelligence, and we are now working on a policy paper you know, with these all new softwares and BIMs and tools, I mean, obviously they are, we consider them to be tools to achieve better result, to be more effective, or maybe to create or generate forms that were not possible before them. So we use them as a help. But then again, you know, when you think of the, you know, in historical perspective, when you think about the buildings that were built several hundred years ago in such a formal, elaborate ways, without basically any of help of the you know, Baroque buildings or Gothic cathedrals, you know, someone had to conceive all of this and have these images in their heads. So I think the tools are there to be used to a point where, you know, in the way we want to. But let me share with you an information that we recently also found out. For example, in Vienna, the city administration of Vienna is now implementing an AI software for checking building permits. And they're now doing, so, you know, the software that we use for now 20 or 30 years, this is something that we all got used to. They are more perfect and becoming better. But this now is becoming a really interesting situation. And they are using 19 projects, pilot projects for testing. So they put in a software, let's say 3,500 urban planning rules, you know, the setbacks, heights, floor area ratios, and all the things. And building codes like fire escape routes, blah, blah, blah. And then they check the projects, and the project and the software marks certain points which are wrong or discutable in a way. And so these are kind of artificial intelligence, let's say, innovations that at the moment seem to me as very, I don't know, interesting, challenging, because usually, you know, in most of European countries, there are problems with issuing permits. It takes you 1 year, 2 years, or even longer, you know, and always the pressure is on the profession, that the profession is not quick enough. But we are very adaptable. We can adjust to anything. We basically use these softwares as best as we can. The problem was always on the other side, on the side of the building permitting agencies, authorities. It takes them forever. So if AI could help architects in this respect, then this would be something that I think would be even more important and more influencing than, you know, the dream of pushing a button and printing out the set of drawings or beautiful images for the house. And this is only stage one. You still have to build this through, to follow the project, post-occupancy evaluation, I don't know, the getting new knowledge, and then carrying on into a new project perhaps. So this is kind of innovation from AI that I'm really looking forward. But of course, we also have to be aware that there is a significant part of the profession that somehow has strong reservations toward introducing artificial intelligence, BIM, small practices. As I said, 75% of architectural offices in Europe are 1-2 person people who cannot bid for big projects and use expensive software unless they get into collaboration with other offices and so on. So this is a delicate issue in a way.
I think the first part of the question was actually about the image, if I remember correctly, and the power of the image. So maybe I want to start from that. We architects, we have to deal with the fact that, or we know that an image is very powerful. So we are sometimes forced to create architecture which also turns into beautiful images. So an image has to be Instagrammable. We need to make architecture which can be shown. And that's something which really changed a lot over the last 20 years. And I'm sure there is a big difference also between architecture presented in China or in Asia and architecture architecture presented in Europe. So when I was thinking about this question, I was also thinking about the positive aspect of all these images around us. So images are very powerful, so they can also reach people they maybe before couldn't reach. So before, when we had to explain a lot with texts, we lost people on the way. Now we can use photos to quickly reach out to people. But of course, it can be a very manipulative way of reaching out to people. But it can help us maybe to bring our ideas across, or to also help us with branding. On the other hand, it makes maybe architecture become more two-dimensional, as it minimizes architecture on an image. And so I'm I can have a little bit of, I can share with you the worry that complex concepts or complex architectures cannot be minimized in an image. So that's kind of the intake on the idea of this image, or the power of the image. And architectural intelligence, I think there are always, there are a lot of ways to see that, and there are always probably two sides of the coin. One is like, oh, this is very dangerous for our profession, and the other one is, oh, we should try to embrace technology. So I think there is a lot of potential in AI and using AI for our profession, because I can see also in the work of our office that I don't want to say waste a lot of time, but we spend a lot of time generating things which could be generated maybe by a program, and could help us actually to use, the results the program generates and then evaluate. So basically spend more time, more of our important time on evaluating or sorting out solutions, rather than trying to generate all these solutions and then needing to spend the time also on evaluate those solutions. And maybe we cannot solve everything, of course, with AI, but we can start with, layouts, and then reorganize these layouts or overlay these layouts, and can find mistakes easily. So I'm sure that the software is able to offer a lot of very great ideas, which could be extremely valuable for streamlining design process. So I'm not saying that we use it only to generate plans or even buildings, but I think it can help us in the process of designing buildings.
Thanks, Binke. I'll pass over to Ivan.
Yes, thank you very much. We've been speaking about images, about the power of images, and I wanted to ask you about if you think that citizens, people perceive how relevant architecture and architects are to the health and safety of our built environment that we share beyond the images. So maybe Dubravko, very briefly, because we have many questions, we want to ask you many things, but maybe all of you very briefly could speak about this perception of the profession.
Well, about health and safety, I think over the two past years with the global pandemic, this awareness maybe has increased. But previously, I don't think in terms of really health and safety, other than lots of light and healthy conditions and these things, I think that general public usually sees us as people who create nice or bad or beautiful or ugly houses, public spaces, and things like that. But the very concept of safety, maybe in relation to public security and these things and health before, were not really that much in the focus, but are getting really important nowadays. So I think this is something that architects, especially those who design public buildings, open spaces, and these kinds of projects will you know, will have to articulate these thoughts a bit more stronger in a way, which, you know, we always follow all the rules when designing, so you have all bunch of considerations that general public does not necessarily need to know, you know, but I think this will become, if it's not already, a larger issue to address and to publicly speak about, and to somehow also make it an important aspect of the project.
Binke, what would your point of view be here?
First of all, I would really like to say I do think that must be very different in China than from Europe. That's what I feel. During the pandemic, we heard a lot of news. Also, there were some issues with certain buildings where people tried to escape and they couldn't escape. So that raised probably, at least among us architects, some questions about, you know, fire safety or means of egress. So, and I'm sure that it also made normal people think about these points. And so we never really elaborated on this. So it might be also the fire code which has issues, but it's also probably if you change certain conditions while you operate buildings, it can cause safety hazards or health hazards. So I think this is something which maybe became more apparent during the pandemic, at least here. But I think in general, the awareness is not very much existing. And also that actually urban planning and construction and the way cities are built, that this has an impact on health. I think this relationship, I don't think that's very much understood from the normal person, because they're used to live in a certain environment, they grow up in a certain environment and they deal with this environment, but there are some complex relationships which need to be further explained. And the more the cities develop and the more better places you also have, the more people become aware of the relationship. But I think in generally, the public is not very sensitive towards these questions.
And Darcy, which would be your experience here?
Yeah, last year, the project I presented to you, the Chengdu project, the construction, most of the construction time is happened during the lockdown situation, the pandemic period, but it's still luckily completed in last year before October. But at that timing, China still has very restricted pandemic control in overall society. So I heard my client told me there are still, you know, only a few people coming to the restaurant because of the restrictions, and but yeah, something happened, and luckily the total policy reversed 180 degrees. So during last December, then the people flow just naturally coming out after everyone get COVID, and you know the general public currently in China, they love to use some software like we call Red Book, Chinese called Xiaohongshu, or they love to post their photos from some personal like public media, and then to showcase like what kind of architecture or interior project they are having dinner, coffee with friends, but it's very usual before the pandemic control, but last year is quite hard for all of us, and especially our architectural profession, because you don't see this situation happen again. Everyone is staying at home, and then many restaurants closed, many maybe shopping mall just less people coming. But after last year December, and I sometimes I check my my project, the hotel hospitality project, restaurant project through like a little red book or some public media, and I'm happy to see like yeah, the the general public is coming back to use the space itself. So yeah, I think it's becoming healthy after December. So that's what I see this issue from my experience.
Thank you, Davide.
Thanks, Ivan. Binke, over the first couple of questions, a number of points have already been touched. AI, pandemic. Dubravko has been showing some numbers about the profession in Europe. All of them seem to call somehow the need of reshaping the profession of the architect. Reshaping, changing, pushing forward. I don't know which one is the word you want to use. Maybe crossing another boundaries, since I'm asking this question to you. So what would be your take? What would be the next step for the profession of architecture?
I think that there's not one answer to this. I think there is one thing we can always touch on again, because we are aware of it when we're working as architects, is the speed. So let's say we plan on an airport. We know this project might take a long time, like let's say 10 years. And while the project is completed, the requirements are different, the demands are different, maybe the planes are different. All these things can happen in the meantime. So basically, the project took us too long, or at the beginning we were not able to foresee all the potential issues coming up in the meantime. So I think speed is something we have to work on, and AI is a tool which could maybe help us to generate higher speed. At the same time, because I'm based in China as an architect, I think speed is something to mention also, which is something which is very important here. And buildings in general are not built as fast as we maybe wish, but they are still built faster here than in Europe. But then they have a lot of issues, which are the issues of, they have sustainability issues. The lifespan of a building in China is much shorter than of a building in Europe. I'm sure about this. So we need to get onto those buildings and basically renovate them, refurbish them after a short time. And which also means at the same take that we use a lot of more resources here. So I think we have to be much more resourceful. We have to take care of our environment, and that's something which is a topic which is talked about a lot, and I don't want to dwell on this, but I think it's also something we have to see in the relationship of where we talk about it. So because it means something else in China than it means in Europe. And so speed as a general point I would like to address, because if we spend less time on buildings, we also will maybe spend less energy. So it's, for me, I think the most important for me is to streamline our profession.
Thanks a lot, Binke. Can I pass over to Dubravko for his take on the question?
Well, it's a complex question, you know, and obviously, as Binke has been mentioning over and over, it's not, you know, it's not. I don't think there is a universal answer to for all the areas in the world. The situation is different on various continents and so on. I would say, you know, we were discussing images at the beginning. I think we need to get away from this culture of images in terms of the effectiveness and the new potentials of the disciplines. Obviously, we communicate through images. This is very normal and spontaneous for artists. From you know, scratches on the clay stones or on the paper to very sophisticated virtual reality or video presentations that we can do nowadays. But I think that, you know, we are struggling very hard with technical competencies, and the world is becoming more and more reliable on kind of technical competence that we seem to be delegating to other collaborators, sub-professions, and then so, and obviously we are, this is the sort of the heavy burden that we have on our shoulders, always considering the profession between kind of the generalist approach and specialist approach, so how to maintain this in kind of very sensible equilibrium, being in charge of the overall project or part of the team, and then again be let's say competent enough to take care of all the important parts that somehow reflect on the project. Maybe this is already an illusion that's been lost, kind of the way the architects work, especially in complex projects. I really don't have an answer to this. I think, I don't know. I don't have a catchy answer on this one. Sorry.
It's okay not to have an answer, but it's perfectly fine to have a lot of thoughts about it. Let's go to Shanghai and Darcy.
Yeah, I think different people practice in different region has different. I think has different answer or no answer about this question. I believe it, and because my experience working in China over 14 years. I'm experienced in this urbanization in overall China, and what I found is the challenging part for me is I think right now my observation is too much spaces in the city is generated by the money, by the economy itself, but not really consider the city public space. So in Shanghai or in Shenzhen or in many big cities, a lot of the commercial space coming up, and you need to pay. I mean, you can still go inside, but if you want to like stay or you need to pay money and to experience the architecture of the building. But somehow simultaneously, I'm thinking they are still thinking of a very comprehensive or sustainable public space development well in current China urbanization situation. Maybe there are still some area is developing good, but it's not that overall well developed in the city side. So I think what we can do as an architectural profession, and as we know the different systems operating here, but as an architect or architectural profession or higher ranking people, they can really change this situation. For example, very simple, like walking on the pedestrian. Do you really feel comfortable in a city? It's very simple. So I think this question for everyone, for maybe especially for the two groups in China, Beijing and Shanghai. So and how do we really elevate those basic things in the public space in China? I think is quite urgent. And then also I have another observation about like because our company we have some project on the countryside, and you know many people moving into the city looking for a job, life, living in the city, but in China there are many places like the countryside really underdeveloped, but there are still people living there, and what's their living conditions? That is another challenges for me, because during the past 1 week I visited some places, but it's not that well developed city, and I visited those countryside, and many abandoned buildings, but there are still some people living there, but mostly is elder people. So it's very obvious there. You can see there are some issues there, and as a professional, how can you respond to it? So that's my observation. So especially I think it's practicing in China. So I think in US, in Europe, even in Europe and different countries, there are different situations. So that's my answer to this question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Darcy. Jose, stays with you.
Thank you. Let's stay here. I would like to ask about the relationship between you like architects and the client in your different realities. How this is affecting your project, the workflow, and also the kind of typologies that the clients they are asking you to do right now. Darcy?
Yeah, it's a good question, I think. I think as an architect, being this profession, there are some lucky part and there are some unlucky part. Because I think architect is a very paradoxical profession. So because once you successfully get a project from a client, and you need to satisfy him, right? And you get money and you move forward the project, but you couldn't like 100% only satisfy the client. You still need to satisfy yourself. So how do you balance it? And in our studio, and we also don't have the specific like a geometrical we must do like we need to do like a Zaha style or whatever style building. No, we don't have this. So our approach is no matter where this client comes from, and the first lesson is understanding the client. So we don't check the project itself, but the first lesson we understand the client. We check the clients, their background, what they do. Maybe the project they are looking for us is only really focusing on one part, but they are still have some other business doing other parts. So we will do very comprehensive understanding about the client, and then connect the useful information as much as possible from the client or from many different resources, and then to really get into the project deeply, and then to have deeper communication with our client. And also another thing is the client, there are many different types. It's very obvious. There are many different types. Some clients from the government, what they want. Some clients from the real estate developer and what they want. And some clients from a smaller private sector and what they want. So they are coming from you from many different aspects. They are carrying many different questions. So I think for us, I think it's always very crucial to set the rule how to really communicate with your client, and really how to move every project move forward. Every project is really different. So because we are a relatively young firm, we are only 5 years right now, so we are still learning but luckily, most of our clients really trust us, even though we have many debates, but we are sincere and we provide our profession. So the best thing is technology. We get in touch and work with our clients. So, but there are many details I didn't describe. Is the general methodology. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Darcy. Dubravko, what do you think about this relationship?
Since we have representatives of two offices, let me speak perhaps a little bit more general, and then they can, you know, a lot of projects in Europe are funded through public procurement, and this is very important for us, and public competitions first, or architectural competitions first of all, as a tool to find the best project, and then so, but obviously the amount of administration and sometimes facelessness of the public procurement institutions and bodies does pose a challenge. And I think that, you know, as we all know from our own practices, smaller or bigger ones, I think the client and the attitudes, the priorities, the awareness, the potential to see or ability to see the potential in any particular project is as important as a good architect, because you know, you really need to have a good interlocutor on the other side, regardless if it's a family house or a huge, I don't know, new museum, let's say, you know, someone with a vision and courage and support for the architect and let's say good project. So and we also have, and this is I think very interesting, we have some of our member organizations, I think Austrian Chamber has a Bauherr Prize. They basically give the prize to the client, to the client of the project, which I think it's really good thing to do, and some others have as well, because we have, you know, we as architects always think of the projects as our own kids, but we have to be aware that this is a joint effort, that, you know, without a good client, I mean, everything stays on the paper, or it gets built, but in a really, you know, truncated and bad way, in a way, it gets distorted along the construction phase. So I think, and this is something, since, you know, all of us or most of us are teaching as well, and this is one of the aspects that is sometimes missing also out of schools, if we want to include a bit of education into this, because, you know, the professors are basically posing for clients, you know, in a way, in an attempt to simulate the complexity of outside world. And of course, during the education, this is inevitable. You have to somehow reduce the complexity of the situation that will, but I think this is something that needs to be introduced a bit in education as well, this kind of topics and issues. It also depends on the professional and cultural atmosphere in different countries and so on. So in some countries it's more present, in some it's completely ignored, you know, and so I think we need to work on cultivating this project client and architect relationship, and also awareness of the importance of the client.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Beijing. Binke, give us your opinion about this question.
Yes, I think I have very short time left. Dubravko said it almost all. Yes, the client is really important, and for us, the client is also improving the project. So I don't think that we have to just only deliver a service. We need to have the client to also help us deliver a good service, because the client is a key feature or key person in this whole process. And we were lucky in our career to have clients who also challenged us a lot. So they demanded a lot, they challenged us, and they made us really go the extra mile to improve the conceptual idea or the project at the end. So I think it's a work together. It can never be only the architect providing something and the client just, waving it through.
Thank you very much. So we have a last question that we'd like to ask you briefly. And it has to do with, in the building, there's the architect, but there's also many other people. There are engineers, interiorists, sociologists, interiorists. But where do you see the position, the role of the architect within this whole construction system?
You let me ask first all the difficult questions, well, let's say from European perspective, and maybe generalizing a little bit too much, the entire profession seems to be frustrated a bit for losing more and more, let's say, aspects or influences on the projects. And in a way, I mentioned this dilemma between, architect generalists knowing a little bit of everything, but nothing too well, and the kind of specialist expert knowing a lot about, I don't know, building physics or acoustics or some other aspect of design. This is kind of fine equilibrium that it's always a challenge to maintain. I think, we all, the profession still conceives itself as a, kind of philharmonic conductor, keeping an eye on the entire score and then delegating different parts. We all came across situations when we were kind of heavily disappointed with how it actually worked. I think it's important to be aware of, to learn enough and to be open to new experiences and to be, let's say, educated and curious enough to know about other professions so that we are able at least to talk and communicate well in different aspects of design. It's not the buildings, the world became too complex to be designed only by architects and few engineers, structural engineer and 1-2 more, and that's it. And things are evolving so quickly, we cannot know all these things. We cannot even pretend to know all these things. So this is something that will continue to be the challenge for our profession. And I don't know, people, offices, schools, professional associations, each will have to find the best way to adapt to this. But in my way, I still think that, compared to production of images, I think that, let's say, professional or technical expertise, if you want to, but not technical in a very narrow way, technical in also in sense of quality of design, but and every aspect of design is what gives you a competitive advantage, if you want, in terms of, and some kind of authority within the team or towards client.
Thank you, Darcy. Where do you see the role of or how do you see the role of the architect within this system?
Yeah, I think with the project, it's very crucial to build up relationship between different group, different consultants. It is quite crucial because from my experience, different typology of the project or different style, the composition of how the different engineering form in the project is always different. If the client really 100% trust you, and he gives you the full contract of everything, then I think everything goes through more smoothly, because all other subcontracts of the engineering they need to sign with you, so they listen to you. It's very obvious. That is the best situation, I think, during the project. Okay, the client trusts you and then sign the contract, the full contract, and all the engineering. You look for all this engineering, and then they sign the contract with you, and the project goes more smoothly. But if the project is not going unlike this way, then I think it's crucial to ask the client who will be other engineering, and I think it's good to build a good relationship to have a good foundation initially with all those consultants. It helps during the project process. And I think luckily last year, that project I presented today, that Chengdu project, we only signed the architecture contract with the client through DD phase, and then the supervision of the CD drawing, and then the site inspection, supervision of the construction site. But other engineering is they sign with others, but we built this relationship in a very early stage, so we know who are late, and we were trying to build earlier relationship with them, and especially when the government approved our project, and is quite challenging for structural engineering and also the curtain wall engineering. So I think it's after the conceptual phase, I deliver this to those engineering, and then start to investigate the challenge in a very early stage. So it helps to really move this project more smoothly, not just resolve the issues from later stage, so you can envision the problems as soon as possible. So I think, yeah, that's the situation or the experience I have. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Binke, Europe, China, is there differences? Are there?
First of all, I think really this is quite a general question, because if I see it from my point of view, it is so different from working in Europe. So here the architect is involved in the first phases of a project, and then normally he's not supposed to really be engaged too much. So you as an architect in China, you have to really push to actually go to the site, because that's normally not really part of the scope, because the scope ends maybe after a schematic design or design development. So I think just this in terms of answering this part of what's the role of the architect in the construction system. Basically, normally the architect is not really in there. That's at least the way I can see or understand the system, the way it's set up. That doesn't mean that the architect is not doing this. The architects I know here, Darcy just talked about it also. I mean, the architect is very much involved and tries to be on top of things all the time. I think that's also the classical understanding of the architect. The architect is kind of, you would draw a diagram, the architect's in the middle and all the other people are around it. And in China, it's more like the architect is in the front and everything then is kind of following afterwards. So I think it's important that the architect has this role of understanding what's going on, but of course that's what was said before. He needs a lot of help because the projects become more complex. The technical equipment, all the things put into buildings are more and more specific and detailed. So I do think it needs not an architect, it needs a group of people who does this. So it can also be maybe an architect associated with a general contractor or something like that. So there can be also new models, I think, which should be developed in time as time goes by, because as I said, just moment is it's a very complex professions, and the buildings are getting bigger and have more demands. So I think we need to also adjust our role in this setup.
Thanks, Binke.
Ivan, may I add? Oh, may I add something?
Yes, I saw Dubravko was
yes,
with the finger up. Go.
I was just thinking, you know, again, this is a kind of problem that we have been carrying on our shoulders for centuries. You know, if you think, we think of both Brunelleschi and Alberti as architects, you know, but one slept in the cathedral and took care of the scaffolding and new masonry types and everything, and the other one wrote books in Latin and didn't really want to go to construction site. It was bothering, you know, he sent an assistant and so on. So this is kind of situation that we have been dealing with, and you know, if you compare the building a dome in 15th century, it's a huge technological endeavor and complexity. So let's say maybe relative to what they had at that point, with kind of projects we do now. And then, so I think this is obviously, it really depends a lot of context. Like Binke was saying about China, I wasn't aware that you don't really go to construction site, right? In Europe, let's say most European countries, this is something that you really want to do, and then somehow is included in the scope of service to the last detail.
We are not supposed to, but we are doing it.
Yeah, good for you. No, but I'm saying, so obviously it's not the same across the globe, and also it's different within the professional culture, I would say. So, you know, this, my point would be that that there is no clear answer to this, and that we will keep fighting in a way, and probably see different kind of approaches to this as well. But the profession itself will never, let's say, give up of this kind of overarching whole of the project, you know, the baby, the child.
Thanks a lot, Dubravko, and I underline what Binke said about the number of practitioners in a company, linked to your numbers earlier on. Indeed, for example, in Italy, the average studio is made by 1.2 people, which inevitably brings a lack of competitiveness, a lack of expertise, and all the disruption we see in the so-called AC industry. Thank you very much. I think that this was the last question. I'm looking at the big screen here in Roca, Beijing, to Ivan and Jose nodding at me. So I think we can draw the first evening with our guests to a conclusion. So I'll start from Beijing, thanking again Binke for the time she spent with us, and also thanking the venue that has been hosting us, the Roca Galleries in Beijing. And now I'll pass over for the conclusions to Jose first, and then Ivan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darcy, for accepting the invitation. It has been a pleasure, and thank you the people that they came here to stay with us, and of course Roca Gallery for letting us to enjoy this very nice space. I pass to Ivan.
Thank you very much, both David and Jose, and thank you, obviously, Dubravko, here in Europe, here in Brussels, but also both of you, Binke and Darcy. So, and all the people that have been present and following. It's the evening over there in China. Here we're about to go and have lunch, and we also are looking forward to seeing you next week when we speak about education. So thank you also very much to Roca, and obviously to Jasmine and Katrina, and all the team at Roca and at your university. Thank you very much. See you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and go and visit the exhibition in Shanghai. Bye-bye.